meeting of the Ramsey County Commission to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's what my goal was. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. We have a motion. We have a second. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the bills.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. And there was additional bills on your desk if you saw it. Okay, any discussion on the bills? Seeing none, roll call please.
Brown,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Britt,
Aye.
Lightfoot.
Aye. Motion carries. Bills are approved. Okay. Financial reports.
We only have, we have SRAM fees that we have to send a report, I guess, every month, and that's an in and out and a something in a, I don't know. It's in the red right now, but they already deposited money, so that's covered. Employee deductions, we have where we have to send in 2 months or 3 months of stuff for like medical or dependent spending in order for people to get the money. So that's why that figure is the way it is.
The ones that runs in the red until the end of the third month, basically,
Yeah.
and then it's
Yeah.
red again for the next one.
And then we gotta
That's what
build
you're
pot back up again.
Okay.
Yep.
saying. Okay, any further questions or discussion on the financial reports?
Move to approve the financials as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion to approve,
Second.
and we have a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Olson,
Aye.
Britt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Lightfoot.
Aye. Motion carries. Treasurer's checks.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second by Commissioner Frey. Further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And then you want to roll call.
Oh, sorry,
It's
yes.
like 2 million.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
we can roll call, that's fine.
Yeah.
Roll call please.
Olson,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Britt,
Aye.
Lightfoot.
Aye. Motion carries. I apologize.
That's good.
Always forget which one.
Yep.
Approval of the agenda. Do we have any additions?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion approved and a second on the agenda. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Crystal,
Yeah,
you're up first.
okay. Are you okay with me sitting here and can you hear me okay?
I'm fine.
Okay. So my main thing was to have you guys look at the policy changes that I'm recommending. And the department heads in our last meeting, reviewed these to make sure there was no input that they had from their side. So the next thing is for you guys to review them and hopefully approve them or give your suggestions how you would like them changed. So, some other things that came up in the department head meeting were elected officials, if we want evaluations done on them. And this is just things to think about for future. The other thing that came up was raises for poor evaluations, how we want them handled, if we want that to be the discretion of the department head. So, and like, I'm not looking for answers by any means today, but just something for you guys to think about. So, once you guys do approve the policy changes, the plan is to have an employee meeting and bring all employees in to review them and sign off that they've reviewed and been notified of the policy changes. So there is an upcoming training that I have the EPA coming in for. That's going to be May 2nd. We're looking at a date of. And what it is going to be is for managers to get employee evaluation training and discipline training. The other one, then they're gonna do that same day is employee harassment training. And we're gonna do them in 2 half-hour sessions. So, and I'm not sure if you guys like to be copied on my emails, like for the department head meetings, I just like to keep you guys on the loop, or if you just want me to keep Adam in the loop on what's going on, it's completely up to you guys. I don't wanna bombard you either with my emails, but don't be afraid to tell me that you don't need them, so. So that's just kind of from HR, what's all been happening and what I'm looking for you, from you guys, so.
Okay. Any questions? Let's the schools changes.
Just the department heads are all right, the changes.
I missed that.
One, 20 hours on the comp time might not be enough for the highway guys, of like a week, they might get that in a week. So I don't know what, haven't talked to Crystal about this yet either, so it's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and them ones are for our department head meeting to review tomorrow, them policies that you just got in that email. So, the ones that the commissioners have today, yeah, they just have the introductory statement and the employee
Okay,
performance
so-
evaluation.
I'll get that.
So,
Yeah,
okay,
and I guess
sorry.
I can give a little background too. I was able to sit in on the department head meeting and Crystal and I visited about it. Basically, she's taking a couple of them every time, looking at them, making adjustments, and then taking them to the department heads, clearing them, and then she'll bring them to us after that, as long as the department heads are okay with what's been here, basically. So then there's more to talk about tomorrow at the next department head meeting, and then so on and so forth as they have more meetings. As things kind of come up, she's kind of, addressing them as they happen, so.
And the way it kind of seems to me, it was more grammatical stuff, and it really doesn't change the context of the policy per se, but it just kind of clarifies it a little bit and taking out some of the words that didn't need to be there. Is that kind of?
yeah, and that's with a lot of the policies, they're, I don't wanna say they're bad policies by any means, but when the manager's going to go by them, they're kinda having some confusion areas, and so
Yeah.
just to clarify them areas is kind of what.
I thought what you had here looked good.
Like the introductory statement, for example, it's got the non-social services, and it's kind of saying that social service department doesn't have to abide by the county policies at all, and that's not the case, and so we wanted to kind of clarify that there in the policy, that they still have to abide by us, but the state is the first one they go to.
When was the last time the handbook was looked at?
No, there's revisions in there, I think 2015, I've seen some revisions in there. The dates in there that it went actually effective was 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my goal is to get like the policy manual up on, like having the HR, having a spot on the website for HR, and then having like the policy manual on there, so employees always have access, and we can always say, you have access to it on there. So I would like to get them 2001 dates out of there, so we can make sure that we're bringing it more up to date. So, right now, the policies that I'm bringing forward, they're policies that I'm seeing issues with, and they've come into question. So that's the ones I'm touching on right now.
In 15, we had Nace look at it, what's his name? I can't think of the guy's name, some Kraft. Yeah, Chuck went through the whole thing
From the
in 15.
Association of Counties.
Yeah. Yeah, he made just a few different changes, a few updates here and there. It's like everything, it's always good to have a, set eyes over them every couple of years, just to, things are constantly
It's
changing.
kind of a moving target, some issues.
Well, that, and I think it's good partially too, like going over the performance evaluation section here, having a department head meeting and getting some feedback on how the department heads want to do it, how we need to handle it, and then writing the policy accordingly seems to work pretty well. Because there was a really, really good discussion at the last department head meeting when I was able to attend. A lot of good questions, a lot of good feedback, so. It was constructive.
Crystal, are you looking for a motion to approve these changes for the handbook that we have in front of us today?
I'm not sure how you guys wanna do it, if you wanna do it today, that would be okay, but if you wanna take some time and discuss it, or, I'm not sure how you guys wanna do that.
We should probably just do it at the end of the changes of all the policies, right?
Um,
The handbook.
If that's how you guys wanna, if you want to, it's completely up to you guys, we can do it all at once, or we can do it as we go. I know it gets to be a lot of policies, reviewing policies, if we do it all at once, that, I don't know how, however you guys want, or feel comfortable, I'm fine with.
I guess it's up to the wishes of the commission.
Just some thought, if you did them all at once, they'd all have the same date that's
Right.
updated.
I mean, we could just, basically just look at them and say, okay, we're kind of giving them pre-approval by not having any problem with them today, put them on the pile, and then when it's all again, we can just blanket motion to approve, everything would work okay. I agree that everything's done at the same time. That makes sense.
I guess I'm really relying on the department head to come up with yes or no if the policies are all right, you know. We're the ones that are making them function, so making them work.
And the ones we have in front of us have already been vetted by the department heads, correct?
Correct, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's gonna, like I said, I think that's kind of the intent is, see something, make a change, put it in front of the department heads, let them look at it for a while, make any changes, comments, then bring the concept back. So everything's, at least at this point, and these are pretty easy comparatively to what's included.
Hello, everybody.
Tony, we're right in the middle of talking about the changes to the policy handbook.
Okay.
$5.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
It would be okay to make a motion to, and then make a final at the end.
I mean, it
You know.
just depends on how everybody wants to handle it, I guess. It's, doesn't matter.
Basically all in one handbook, right?
I mean, yeah, we could make a motion and to preliminarily approve it basically, and then make a motion at the end to approve everything altogether as a whole. That way at least we know these are approved, so there's no more changes to be made to them. Just so everything's got the same date on it, so.
And that might be okay too, because then I could just send out a notification to employees that these policies have been approved by the commissioners, and then at the end of the year, do a complete review of the employee handbook and have them sign off on it, instead of doing multiple changes, and that might be.
Yeah, that might work. I mean, then it's up to the commission's discretion, I guess, whatever you gentlemen feel like.
To catch myself back up, have you made these changes already? Is that what we're looking to approve, or are you looking to get approval to make changes?
So it was kind of up in the air on how we want to handle the procedure for it, like these two policies, the introductory statement and then the performance eval. The department heads have reviewed it, and in our last meeting, we had a discussion on them to make sure there was no changes that they wanted to see made on them. And then I was bringing them to you guys to approve. And the kind of the question was how we wanted to, how you guys wanted to approve them, if you want them all at once or as we go along.
I mean, I guess I'm on the side of, I don't think there's anything wrong with approving them separately and then once at the end, simply because otherwise we're gonna be going back and going, what was that one about? You know, this could take a few months.
Sure.
What was that one about 3 months ago? So at least Crystal knows that these are approved, these ones are okay, move on to the next set, just kind of keep rolling down the line, basically. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I think under that logic, I'd be willing to move to approve adoption of.
Okay. We have a motion,
Second.
we have a motion and a second to adopt the changes to performance evaluations as well as the introductory statement for the employee handbook. Further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Okay. You have anything else?
I don't know.
Okay.
Are you okay with me?
No, you can step out, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have just what is listed under unfinished business, so if that's okay that we talked about it now, is that, to move it, is that a problem?
I guess I don't see it. If you're here, you might as well.
Okay.
You don't have to sit around for a while.
And it's just to bring up the contract that we've discussed in previous couple of meetings. If we're any further on looking at signing that contract or what your thoughts are. Carrie did review the contract. I don't know if she spoke with you in the last meeting or not, but she did tell me that she didn't see any issues with it as such. And we could confirm that with her even before signing it again, but
Okay.
other than that, that was the only thing I wanted to bring up today.
Were there any additional parcels that were going to be combined or anything? Is that 190 pretty much the last number?
We haven't done any of those combinations yet.
Okay.
I have a stack of them, I'll kind of, which ones should be, and I think we'll continue to work on that as we go. So I think the number will fluctuate, and I think they expect that number to fluctuate, just because things can come up, different, like, you know, new construction, or come across something that hadn't been found in the past or that. But I don't think it'd be a big jump either direction.
Yeah, that in the contract says it's a flat rate for every
Right.
parcel that we
Yeah.
deem a parcel, so it would just be an extra, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, the 455, yeah.
450, okay. Seems reasonable.
There wouldn't be anything right now due, obviously be a discussion in next year's budget on how much to set aside, but it's to get on their list to,
Get them locked in and
Yeah.
get them scheduled then, basically.
yeah.
And also, they were gonna do the elevator sometime
They'll
this
do it
summer,
this
so by
summer.
signing it now, we have
Right.
them locked in to come up and get that done this
Yes.
year. Okay, further discussion or questions for that?
I move to go ahead and approve the contract with Vanguard.
Okay, we have a motion to approve signing the contract with Vanguard to do commercial appraisals in 21 and 2018, the rest in 2019. We have a second.
Second. Oh, you got it.
We have a second, further discussion.
Beth, can you refresh my memory, was there an amount that was needed, they needed as we signed the contract with them, or is it still to be billed at a later
It'll
date?
be billed as they go.
Okay.
We have our budget, Beth? We
We,
have enough?
we don't have it in this year's budget, no. We would have to look at putting it in the next year's budget.
And
You know,
that's
it's
when
never
they-
been budgeted for before.
And that's when they do the work is next year, correct?
In 2019 is when it.
You just have to come up with if they wanted to get paid for the one parcel.
Right, and we would have that,
the
I'm sure I
$600
would
or
find
whatever
that
it is,
in
yeah.
this year's,
That's no
yeah.
problem. Now, we could find $600. we can-
Yeah, no,
Jason
I
Bush or
would have that in the budget.
something. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve signing the contract. Further discussion. Seeing none, I'll ask a roll call on this one.
Wakefield,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Brett,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Lightfon.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, anything else, Pat? That's it?
No, that's it, and Candy has both copies of the contract, so I'll let her take care of that with you.
All right.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Beth. Cross that off. Stacy?
Yes,
Afternoon.
good afternoon. February was exceptionally busy month, probably the second most busy month I've had since I've been in Ramsey. 111 veterans and family members came through. Valentine's Day was a surprise, we had 17 people stop in. They were paying their taxes, so they felt obligated to stop in and talk business. It was a very good month for being a short month. Then the only other thing I got is our spring conference is the week of the 19th, 20th, 21st is our conference in Bismarck. And our ongoing education and we have twice a year, so I'll be attending that.
Is that March?
March, yep.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Stacy?
Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
thank you guys.
Short and sweet. Kristen?
I'll try to keep it short and sweet, just like he did.
Okay.
Couple of things before I explain why I asked Star to be here with me today. I talked to Mark Verkey about setting up a defensive driving course. here again in Ramsey County, and we're looking at dates in March. He's going to call me back and confirm those. And then I'll send an email out to all employees if they want to partake. Another thing is, I, being the president of the Emergency Management Association, over the next 2 to 3 months, we'll be busy with various meetings and phone conferences to lock down and kind of finalize plans for our fall conference. At the end of, actually we changed it, we're gonna do it at the end of August this year versus September, just with timing conflicts and things around the state. So, other than that, pretty regular things, some grant work, EMPG grant, normal things in my office. I asked Star to come here today to help explain, because she's a little bit better versed at it when it comes to frequency sharing and the paperwork that they did put in your packets. Having to sign that MOU for frequency sharing with the state of North Dakota and through ITD when the time comes for it, or if the need arises for it. Star, do you want to
I'm just gonna wait for questions.
Okay, it's, nothing's finalized. They don't know when, where, how the money's going to come to pay for this. The new trunking system, all of it. But this, by signing this MOU, doesn't put Ramsey County into a position stating that we're gonna take on all this responsibility or sole responsibility to pay for anything, to do anything. It's just to jump on our frequencies, our channels that we have here. Essentially, Ramsey County only has they only own one repeater, it's up in Webster, the Ramsey County repeater, the net channel. We don't have many options for them to jump onto as far as what we have for Ramsey County or what we're tied to. We did present this, I had Star present this to the city last night. They tabled it. They had some reservations, I think, and I think the big one for them is they're not sure who's gonna pay for it, so they don't really wanna sign the MOU. I don't wanna say to you and have the wrong impression out there, but by signing this MOU, it doesn't tie you to anything, and it doesn't make you mandated to pay for anything. It's not nothing, but it doesn't tie Ramsey County into anything. It's not saying that you're going to be responsible for anything, or tie your hand down, so.
The only thing it's saying is that you're going to share frequencies.
Right.
That's it.
And Ramsey County only has one that we're responsible for that we could share.
You need a motion to this effect?
We do, and then we need the MOU
You
signed.
need just motion to sign the MOU.
Yeah.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to sign the MOU.
Second.
We have a second, further discussion. Jeff looks like he has a question.
I do. Does this mean that they're gonna be wanting an upgrade on the radios again for, whether it be state radio, Ramsey Highway, everybody that's on that system? And because they did that a few years back.
And a lot of radios are coming to end of life.
Yep. By 2018, a lot of the radios here that our responders use, or our highway department or anywhere, they're coming to end of life. Not saying that they won't work, but if something happens to them and they become unusable, there's no way to fix them other than to replace them.
Well, it becomes a big cost for not
Very
only county, but school as well, because
Yeah.
all the buses
All
are
the
on those.
schools, all public works, highway departments, you name it. And I actually did apply for a grant to get, my hands on $100,000 to be able to upgrade everything now, but I was denied because they decided at the last minute they weren't allowing communications in on the grant, and so they threw my application out of the running. And I didn't know that at the time. That was their decision. So I didn't get any grant dollars, to be able to divvy out to our responders, our schools, public works, highway department, myself, anyone. everybody, all first responders, anybody to help them defer the cost, the LEC, anyone. So I don't know when that time comes for our end-of-life radios, and if they break or they quit working, where we're gonna get those dollars. I don't have grand plans for that yet.
Yeah.
I'm keeping my eyes open for any other grants that come about or become available, but nothing's open yet.
This whole memorandum of understanding, isn't this all part of the deal where, I know the Association of Counties had been working on it as well, where it's going to be essentially, we share frequencies and then other counties share frequencies, so that way our radios will work anywhere in the state on the frequency level then.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we could, and they were running into those problems in different situations where maybe a sheriff went and helped someplace else and his radio was
Right.
not tying into their system because of non-frequency sharing. So they're gonna do a trunk system and then everything's gonna be able to talk to one another
Right.
again. We'll
And
just
they-
have to flip to the right thing then.
Right, and with FirstNet, with AT&T and FirstNet, they're putting up, I think they said another 36 or 38 towers across the state to be able to give better coverage, better blanket coverage everywhere, whether you're in a building or outside or up in the Pembina Gorge or,
Yeah, and I think the intent was, and I don't remember if they tried to get it through the legislature or what it was, but they were going to attempt to put an additional, some type of a tax on the 911 fee.
That's
out
already
on the-
there.
Yeah, is it there? So they're gonna try to build up monies through that to help the
And
counties
we
defray costs as well
have-
as cities.
We sent in a lot of money, like $70-some thousand already, so.
Yeah, and I think that was what the intent of that
Right.
additional tax was, is that they're gonna build up a fund so that everybody can get on the system together then.
I think they said last night at the meeting that they have already gotten $38 million. But it's $100-something
Yeah,
million
It's
project.
a huge project.
it's a
yeah.
huge project, and that's a lot of people's worry is, well, where are you gonna come up with the money and who's gonna be responsible? And I want you to know that that's not what this MOU is tying you to. I can't tell you how they're gonna pay for the rest of it yet, but I know that this is not going to tie Ramsey County in and say anything on that front.
I'm sure the money will get there until the next legislative session.
Yeah. I think they'll continue building that fund up until,
We've been working on it out there, 911 for a couple of years, or 3.
Quite a while, yeah.
So who all would we be sharing with, like the,
Everybody that owns a radio in the state.
well,
Yeah, any public entity.
And end of life is expected when on our radios?
2018,
So that doesn't mean they're gonna stop working at the end of this year?
correct, but if something happens to them, they're obsolete, they're considered no good anymore, they can't be fixed, they just have to have replacement radios. And
so,
I was gonna say, and speaking of, it brought me to another point real quick, we've been having some issues with our repeater, only with Starkweather, the fire department in particular. I've had Mike Bartholomew go up there 3 times, and he's been monitoring the frequency. The LEC hears it sometimes on their end, and we can't pinpoint a problem of what it is. I just wanted you to be aware that I'm working on it, and I'm going to continue to try.
Do you guys ever hear it?
oh, what?
Hear it on your guys' radios? It's like, how did we describe it?
It's like, you know, the old internet dial tone, dial up?
Yeah,
It sounds like that. Sounds like the data interference.
well, we get like a buzz, but not like the dial tone thing.
Okay.
Mm.
So
It
that's,
is from the Starkweather buses.
yeah, it is. It's from the Starkweather. I don't know what's causing it. I don't know what the problem is. I know that's a little bit of an adjunct to what we were talking about, but I wanted to.
What's the cost of a radio? Is it about $4,000?
For a portable radio, it's about 2,600. For a mobile radio, it's around maybe 33. Base stations are more, depending on what size of a radio, what it all can do, how much you can program into it. All those have.
How many radios do we have in the county that are county operational? Somebody supposed to be calling in?
I would bet we have close to 25.
I was gonna say closer to 30. 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 10, 16. Between 25 and 30, I'd say.
So we're probably looking at
There's a bundle.
100,000
Yeah.
at least.
I was trying to get money, just for the record, but I have not succeeded yet.
Okay.
Some of ours would be capable, not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah, they have to be digital capable.
P25, yeah, they all have to
We had
be.
to flip over all our business bands a few years ago too, and the other ones became obsolete, and we had to buy new ones.
Yeah,
And then the new ones haven't worked with it since we had. I think that's a base station problem, but.
So like even if a contractor comes through town using that frequency, we hear them too?
if they needed to utilize the frequency.
Only for emergency or what?
That's what it would be.
What if they needed to communicate amongst themselves?
I don't know, Star.
I don't even know how to explain it. There's gonna be different talk groups.
Right?
Kind of like now how we have Bank 25. Remember Bank 25, and they can switch over to that bank, and then within that bank there's, you know, a line for EMS, there's a line for fire, there's, I mean, it essentially breaks down like that, kind of.
Multiple lines in a
Yeah.
frequency.
Right,
Depending
it
on what
won't,
your purpose.
it won't necessarily be on the same top line that you're on, but it could be within that same band group,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, because with digital frequency, you can put additional bands into one frequency.
Mhm.
It's no different than like digital television broadcasting now, where you can have 4 different channels on one digital frequency, it's just that they're different channels.
Right.
And you can do that with radio, PBS now, Peter, your Republic has 4 radio stations on one frequency,
Mhm.
because it's digital broadcasting. So they have PBS, PBB, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's my rudimentary understanding.
Mine too. I'm not as advanced, I don't think, as Star is with all the frequency and radio lingo. So I wanted her here.
Yeah, so,
And this MOU is going back to House Bill 1178.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all in regards to.
yeah, the state basically said that they think this is valuable and it's
Right.
something we need to do, it's just a matter of how do we get there. And
Right.
they're just trying to
And
get
they've
the best.
already mandated that we all relinquish our frequencies anyways.
This is just a nice way of saying, would you
Right.
please share with us?
Yeah, so if we don't sign them, then the state can.
They'll probably just take
That's basically just saying we're gonna allow them to run the frequency until they deem it not necessary anymore, which I guess that is what it is.
only around about enough money.
Yeah.
That's basically what
Yeah, well, I think what they're doing is they're getting their ducks in a row, MOUs and stuff, so once they get some cash together to get started on the project, then they can start rolling frequencies into the project, is what it comes down to, so they can start working on it. Which makes sense. And it says fiscal obligations specifically are gonna go back to the project dollars, so wherever the money's coming from, it's not saying it's gonna come from us, so. I'm sure
I don't know
We'll
what
be
cost share,
responsible,
there'll be something.
yeah, we'll be responsible for our radio costs and everything, because there are radios in our possession, but there'll probably be some type of a buy-in on the frequency runs and everything too. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Okay, further discussion on the motion, President Ramsey, signing the MOU. Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries, and we will sign the MOU.
Thank you.
That's all you got?
That's all I have, unless anybody has anything for me, or questions, comments, or concerns.
Thank you, Kristen.
Okay.
Actually, just a really quick
Oh,
question.
oh, okay.
Just because I can't remember if we ever asked you before, did that guy with the radio ever get that set up?
Guy with radio.
That ham
That
guy.
radio.
Oh, no, that's not done yet, not completed, still in the works. He hasn't, I actually haven't talked to him in a while, but he wanted to get permission or let you know, but it wasn't anything he was pushing for or needed done right away.
Well, yeah.
He came, he wanted to inform you, and you're okay, but it's nothing he was gonna start. I
Yeah,
don't
he was,
even know if he was gonna start this calendar year.
yeah, he was doing groundwork just to make sure it was okay before
Yeah.
he invested some of the dollars, I think.
Yep,
Okay.
I forgot, I haven't talked to him in a little while, but yeah, that's where we are with that. Awesome, thanks guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Okay. Kevin?
Alright. First of all, we need to set the rates for our summer maintenance contracts for this summer. Last year we charged $250 per mile and $150 per hour for our summer maintenance, and $125 for private use. And because the costs went up, have been going up in the last few years, and I guess my suggestion would be to raise it to $260 per mile and $120 per hour for government, and $130 for private. And I sent out that spreadsheet for you to kind of look at, of what it's actually costing us, just for information purposes. We've been going up in small increments over the last few years. I think we got caught one year, we weren't raising it for many years in a row, and then we had to raise it a whole bunch once, and the township suggested that we do it in small increments at that time, so.
When do they have a meeting? This month, isn't it?
Yeah, the third Tuesday of March.
March 27th at 7 p.m. Wayne was in and talked to me about that today.
Oh, that, you mean that's the countywide. But the actual township meetings, annual meetings are on the 20th.
Oh,
Third
okay.
Tuesday.
But the countywide one.
The countywide one, yes.
27th?
27th, 7 p.m. I thought that information that last week at the township officers meeting was really interesting. The stuff that NDLTAP had about adding clay to the gravel, we're doing that, I presume, correct?
We don't spec the PI, but we do spec everything else.
Okay. It was really quite interesting on gravel and adding clay to it as a binder, and how a smoother type gravel road looks to be without gravel, but it's actually the proper way the road should be, according to them, because it has it binds the road together, holds it together better, and then you can also do less maintenance on it. I thought it was pretty interesting that, you know, and they mentioned something about pretend blading.
Yeah.
And, you know, because Kevin, the highway department, gets complaints about, you know, the road's rough, the road's this and that. And so they'll go out just to kind of appease the constituents, the people going up and down the road. But they're just barely moving gravel from one point to another, when it really probably doesn't need it, and doesn't need it as often as, you know, sometimes it's being done. So I thought it was pretty interesting stuff. And looking at their website, that NDLTAP, a lot of really good information on there as far as webinars and training classes that they have. And Kevin, you're on that advisory committee for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, good stuff. So,
Most of my guys have been to that training. The new ones, of course, haven't.
but it's ongoing, and it's, you know, and then they mentioned to the township officers that if there's a cost associated with the class, that they would, you know, if you let them know that you're a township officer, they waive that fee to go to that class. So, and I'm sure that'd probably be the same thing for commissioners as well, or, you know, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, but the fees look pretty reasonable.
Yeah, they are real reasonable.
Yeah. But I guess I would go ahead and move the summer maintenance contract, going up that additional fee that Kevin recommends.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve putting the summer maintenance fees to $260 per mile, $120 per hour for government, and $130 per hour for private. Further discussion. I just had one question real quick when I was looking at it. How much of our total billable dollars are going through the miles, you know, when we're setting up miles, and how much are we actually gaining when we're doing just an hourly work basis?
We're losing money.
No, I know what I'm saying, like, so most of it is done on the, you know, when the townships basically say we want this road done and this road done 6 times or whatever.
Right.
How much hourly work do we actually do where somebody calls us up and says, hey, can you come out and do this for?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Not much. I would say maybe 2 or 3 hours a month. not much.
Okay, that's kind of what I figured, but I was just kind of curious because, you know, our hourly rates are actually set somewhat close to what our hourly cost is, whereas the town, you know, because I wanted to see,
Right.
but, I mean, we're giving the townships a break to make sure that the road's in good shape.
Sometimes if they use a road for harvest and it was money or whatever, then they'll have us do that
Yeah.
road, which is rarely, you know, so.
Yeah, come up and do a quick touch-up, and it'll take an hour or two, or whatever, okay? That was my only question. Okay?
Like you brought it up last fall, how beneficial it was to township roads on that late blading you did when it thawed after that storm and whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, it really helped.
Yeah.
It helped every road I drove over,
yeah.
you know, it made a huge difference for the winter. Some of them, if they had froze up the way they were, I don't care how much pretend blading you would have done, we would have never gotten straightened out.
Right. Especially certain times of year like that.
Yeah, it was crucial, I commented, I think, at the meeting then, that
Yeah.
that was really good thinking on your part, Kevin. One other question I have, do you get a lot of calls where just this township wants to get bladed, but the next one don't?
A few, most generally they work together, but there's some that don't get along. And it's more of a personality clash than township versus
Is
township.
it sometimes when one township wants, what, extra blading, like another time or two, 9
Yeah,
bladings?
that happens often.
Instead of 6? Okay. I was thinking that's the way it was.
It gets better over the years, you know, as we try and keep trying to persuade them to do it. So it's getting better, but it still happens.
You think the townships are all right with these increases?
I don't think so. I mean,
A
yeah,
little bit at a time.
right, exactly.
Yeah, but it looks like we're generally trying to stay at about 50% or so, or
Yeah.
a little bit under that cost of what it's actually costing, so I think they're getting a pretty
Yeah.
good deal in the grand
It's
scheme
about
of things.
47% now. Last year we were 40%, but now we'll catch up to 47. So yeah, you're right, it's about 50%.
I mean, it's pretty reasonable. Okay, further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries, you may get your steps.
Weight limits, they'll be going into effect soon. So I guess I would just be looking for a motion to put those into effect the same time and dates as the DOT does theirs.
Move to approve.
Okay,
Second,
we have a motion and a second to approve.
just a question, is really the weight limit's the same on private roads that we have?
Yeah, did everybody get the map? I don't know if everybody, this is the map that's on our website. So,
Yeah, that's what,
Yeah, it's in gray and white, it's tough to tell about the colors.
I know, I suppose.
No, it's not, it's not your fault.
we got the blue on 8 ton, we're gonna put that one,
These color maps?
from the rest of the south, we're gonna put that on 8 ton again?
We can, it's not that way right now.
No.
I talked to Benson County and theirs was 6 tons, so. That's how we left it that way, but you guys can change it if you want.
How many roads out in the county do we have have the base capable to go to that 95, that maybe we don't have them rated at that 8-ton rate?
Not many. I would say maybe this one that Ed's talking about.
Yeah, because that was rebuilt following, that was under new construction guidelines.
Right. And Benson put a lot of money into theirs now this last couple of years, so I suppose legally theirs would meet those standards also.
Yeah,
But,
sure it does, I mean, they couldn't get the state money without doing it that way,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
but they are signing it that way, so that's, I mean, we can certainly change it. I can talk to them and see if they want to raise theirs.
I just soon have a change now.
Yeah, now would be the time.
Yeah, we gotta make the decision now, maybe.
Because they don't actually go into effect until the state does, so. That's the map that is on our that goes on our website.
None of these other roads have been redone, have they?
I think that's the only one.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of any roads we've rebuilt in the last few, everything's had overlays, and the overlay's not gonna change your base.
Exactly. The
so-
thin lift overlays don't change
Yeah,
it.
your base is still what your base is.
Yeah, exactly.
Except that run up from 3 up there.
Yellow?
North of 17, that yellow part up there, why is that 7 ton versus 6 on the
That
rest?
one was built to, it was built in, probably the last one that was built on a CMC system, and they put fly ash in the base and everything. I mean, they really fancied that one up.
We got that one little stretch of road up there.
Yeah,
that's
and now the
7 ton.
elevator is basically gone. I mean, there's still an elevator there, but no railroad.
Interesting.
They can get to 17? No, yeah.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
come down, you can come
So
down from
from
Hamden
south.
onto 17 and then jump on that, and then that'll be 8 ton rated. Yeah, it's just stuck out like a sore thumb, because, you know, the other, anything else that's blue is something that we've worked on in the past 10, 15 years, basically, so that's why it was up to a different spec.
And when that was built, there was an elevator there and a railroad there.
Yeah, and it, like you said, it was on a CMC, so when they were using, that was probably the state spec at that time, you had to build to at least a 7 ton axle rating or whatever, so that's what we did. Interesting.
So we could change that one then, Kevin?
The one on Woods Rotten Road,
Yeah.
as long as you include that in your motion,
What are we increasing it to?
270.
Same as last year.
So it's 7 or 8, because I just heard 2 different answers.
8. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but basically, everything in the county that's on that 6 ton rating is an older road that just has an overlay on it. That stretch of the Woods Rutten south of 2 was built, when that was built up to an 8 ton spec. We just had always set it at 6 because everything else was at 6, I think, is what it came down to.
Right, we had this conversation last
Yeah.
year about this.
It's kind of like, I think one of the first things we did after I got on the commission was the Doyen Road, for some reason, was at 55 miles an hour, and everything else was 65, and we switched it.
Oh, that's right.
But we never were quite sure why it was 55, it just didn't make sense.
And there were no problems on the Woods Rutten following last year's?
There wasn't, we had one little spot that was separating, but it was separating before we even changed it, so.
Okay.
And we did a oil sand seal there last summer, so it's greatly improved now.
Yeah, it seemed to work pretty well. I drove that road this summer quite a bit. Yeah, it held up really well overall.
But other than that spot, no, nothing,
And that's what's Benson's counties is, south of there?
there's a 6 ton.
There's a still 6.
Is it built to the same spec, or weren't they gonna do a,
They did do it.
so it is built to the same spec, they've just left it at 6?
Mm-hmm.
Some point it would probably make sense to get that changed, the whole thoroughfare is at the same rating.
Yeah, that's the one I'll talk to them about.
When you get down to 20, go back to 8.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but you're probably right.
Yeah, I mean, if they
I would almost
fuck theirs up, then more of the highway traffic might come through that currently goes through town. Possibly, I don't know if they're going around it because of low limits or not.
Which one, Paul?
The traffic coming up Highway 20, they can turn on the Wood Rutten Road on the south end and come through. But
What-
once the county's got theirs restricted, that cuts off that traffic, and the same thing going the other way.
What's the fine per violation?
It's based on your weight. that
Amount
you're
over?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the worse that you're over, it's increments.
Sure,
It's
so
not
it's
just X amount
it's
down.
marginally more expensive as you go up.
Yeah, it's gonna be an 8 ton limit per double wheeled axle. Single wheels are gonna be maybe less than 8.
95 gross.
Yeah, but to get to 95 gross on an 8 ton limit, you gotta have a whole heck of a lot of axle under the truck. You can't get anywhere close, I don't think, with,
You gotta be pulling a pop almost.
yeah, even with the triple axle.
Or else
you
a
got
lot of
a
axles
semi
on
or
your
some
semi.
tri-axle semi, you might make it close, but not even, I don't think you would. 75, 40. Yeah, you make it close, you wouldn't get to 95 though, you'd be close.
Okay, so we make a motion to change that?
Jeff made the motion?
No, Lucas did, didn't you?
I haven't made a motion.
Well, I
but
guess-
I can if you want.
Well, you want me to state what I think the motion should be, and I entertain it, so we
Sure.
can make it? I guess I'll entertain a motion to, put weight limits on at the same time as the NDDOT, while at the same time changing the Woods Rutten Road to an 8 ton limit.
Oh, then I amend my motion to include what you said, because I did make the motion about the adoption, I just didn't.
Okay, so
Okay.
I understand the motion, motion was made by Commissioner Wakefield and
I second.
seconded by Commissioner Brown. Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Okay.
And then next one, then we just need to send a letter to the state highway patrol asking for their help enforcing those.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve sending a letter to help enforce weight limits. Further discussion.
And I will make sure they get the updated one.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
Do they come out and do much of that?
Oh, yeah. Don't they,
Yep, I got it once.
What was the question?
Do they come out and do that very often?
The enforcement.
How are they able to, if you're in the middle of nowhere, how are they able to tell what your per axle load
He has
is?
a portable.
Yeah.
It's all portable scales. They've got these big old scales they take off and they put them up under the axles and you drive up on them. And they weigh you up.
They got pretty good eyeballs too.
Yeah, he's getting,
yeah, they look for the low,
I think,
squish down
yeah, I
tire.
think Trooper Wade's probably been doing, he's been doing it for a long time. Is he still in our area?
Yeah, he was last
Yeah,
time.
I talked to him when he pulled me over. He knew what he was doing. And I wasn't over that much. I mean, it was just barely, but still got in trouble. My own fault. I was loading corn, so. Wasn't used to looking at corn at the box.
Last 20 bushel line, huh?
No, I wasn't anywhere close to full, but I was still over. Weighed up.
Okay, the bids on our prefab bridge for Morris Township, we did only get one bid from True North Steel, and that was $144,684 even. About $10,000 to $11,000 less than the price they quoted us last year, so it was a good idea to bid.
Good deal.
Let's accept it before those tariffs kick in.
So moved.
Still gets more expensive. We have a motion. We have a second.
Did Anthony, did they
Yeah, check it.
say anything about their guardrails and stuff?
Yep, the guardrails met standards. The only thing is, the bridge that's there now has 11-inch beams, and the new one's gonna have 36-inch beams, so it's gonna end up raising the ends of the road, which is not a big deal, but that's the only way they can get it. So in our spec, we did ask that they try and keep it that same height, but they couldn't get the span and the weight ratings with those small beams,
This is doing the 80-foot clear span.
because it's 80 feet long.
And it comes on the truck 80-foot clear span, doesn't it?
And,
And it's kind of incredible. It's gonna, whenever they do that, you'll have to go and watch. It's gonna be
Yeah.
interesting. Because I figured it would come sectioned like
Yeah.
25, but it comes full length 80 and then they sandwich together.
Three
Thirds
pieces.
that way.
Yeah, it'd be like 3 pieces bolted together, all 3 pieces would be 80 feet long, 3 or 4, depends on.
It'd be a heck of a trailer to pull those in. But the guardrails and everything are okay, we're just gonna have to do some, approach work then to get it lifted up so
Yeah,
so it won't be a big old hump then.
and we knew we were gonna have to do a little bit to get our guardrails to fit in there anyway, but
Okay.
now we'll have to do quite a bit more.
So what kind of guardrails are we gonna have on the ends? Are they gonna tail off? They're gonna be straight with like a barrier type thing or?
They'll kind of probably just tail off, I mean, that's, well, I don't know, what are you thinking? They'll be somewhat straight, well, there's not a lot of room for us to tail off unless we haul a pile of dirt. But then they make these things that are safe to run into on the ends.
Yeah.
It would be a lot like the Wood Rutten Bridge, if you remember what that looks like. They don't really tail off like that, but they got those things you run into.
Yeah, like a sand container type deal.
And
It
how
looks
high
like-
are the guardrails?
How high?
2 feet taller than they used to, yeah, right around 3 feet, I think.
Is that gonna be an impediment to farm machinery?
Could be
How wide is this bridge gonna be?
26, the structure itself, and then the guardrails. 26 wide.
As long as we can lift them headers over them rails.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only time it would come into question.
That's what I'm
Problem.
wondering is how high
26
does a
feet.
header lift up? Must be damn close.
You got about that much to play with over the Rutten Bridge.
It's gonna look an awful lot like that Rutten Bridge.
What kind of, what does bridge building standard have for spec for what you have to do for a rail height?
As far as
It's just-
crash safety.
It just changed, I don't remember if it went from 28 to 31 inches high, and then like on concrete barriers, they can't be the Jersey barriers with the step in them anymore, they're single slope.
Okay.
There's been quite a few changes lately.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just whatever we can, whatever legally we have, to do, but at the same time, make it safe, but make sure it's not any higher than it has to be, so
Right.
that way we don't run into those problems. Cause the guys that are gonna be going through there are gonna not wanna hook
They wanna
things.
go with their headers on.
And some of them pull their headers off, but I'm sure, we still wanna have that capability if they can come down the road that way. So,
If they're meeting specs, it's probably gonna be a few inches taller than the Rotten Bridge, because that one would have been before that.
yeah, for the spec change. Well, we'll deal with it as it comes, I guess, we have to do whatever the spec is for the
There is
galaxy.
another road mile down, so,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Right, does it get the trucks in and out this way?
right, the trucks will be able to get across fine, and that's, I understand there's a cornfield on both sides of the bridge, but if they had to, they could go 5 miles to get around.
Oh, we're at the point in time too where a lot of guys now, they'll drop, everyone's pulling 36-foot to 40-foot heads around, they'll drop them off if they have to, that one time to pull them across, if that's what it takes. I mean, it's a pain, but we gotta build it to specs and make sure we don't open ourselves up to liability.
They do haul an awful lot of product across that bridge in trucks.
Yeah.
And that's probably a bigger issue too.
It's a fairly busy road, so, I mean, not for being out in the middle of, the township, there's probably busy roads in the township.
I don't know if we'll fully get to where you're meeting the guardrail standard without having those flares, but you probably won't, but it's still gonna be safer than what's there now.
Yeah.
No crash.
Yeah, right now, it's just like a wood railing,
Straight up that.
it's not,
You hit
it's
that.
not up to spec, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, further discussion on awarding the bid for $144,684 to True North Steel. Seeing none, roll call please.
Wakefield,
Aye.
Brett,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Lightfoot.
Aye. Motion carries.
And that was for, the middle of July, I think, to take delivery on that.
Okay.
The third week in July.
How long is it gonna take to take the old bridge deck off and then bring the new one in?
Yeah, we're hoping 2 weeks, but I don't know whether.
If we can get her done in July, that'd be helpful for harvest season.
All right, number 5, there is advertised for bids for quotes on road oil, paver patching, our gravel projects, and our chip seal project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve advertising on all those different items. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
And then the 1st of April, end of March, we'll be doing the complete maintenance on the 6 motor graders, changing all the oils and updating maintenance. And that's gonna cost, for the filters and oil and everything, it's gonna cost $6,287.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve paying for all the maintenance on motor graders. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Wakefield,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Brett,
Aye.
Lightfoot.
Motion carries.
And then one more thing I have to add, Lloyd Sanderson from Edmore had called me about some old houses in Edmore that the county owns on back taxes or whatever, and he was willing to tear them down. And I told him kind of what we've been talking about, the house in Hamden, how it has to be property of a private individual in order to get away from the asbestos issues. So he is willing to somehow obtain those properties and tear them down for basically nothing, at no cost to us anyway, but he doesn't want to spend any money purchasing the homes. So I told him I'd bring that to the meeting here and just explain it. I don't know how in the world we'd ever get around that, but
Who was it?
Lloyd Sanderson.
Anderson. And I actually went to their city council meeting on Sunday, so I visited with them a little bit about that too. And I basically said the same thing. I said, well, we have to come up with a plan on how we're gonna handle all these properties so we handle them all the same essentially. Otherwise, we're gonna get ourselves in trouble if we don't follow the letter of the law or anything. So I said, whenever Kerry comes up with what she thinks legally we have to do in terms of a process, then we can probably get back to him and see how we can do it. But yeah, I mean, there's multiple places in Edmore too that they're in the same situation as Hamden. Well, they're probably not like, you know, ready to perfect, you know, like dangerous to fall down, but they're getting close and they're an eyesore. I mean,
Yeah.
So, because this has come up again, and I know I brought it up the last time, and it didn't seem like there was any interest in pursuing the train of thought at that point, but I just wanted to raise it again. Is there a good reason that we couldn't set up like a 501c3 organization whose sole purpose is to purchase these buildings, these distressed buildings from the county for their assessed tax cost, tear them down? They would not be presumably under the same obligations as the county to handle it the same way. And then at that point, the county could then repurchase the lots from them and then sell them as we had planned. Because that's what I suggested the first time, and it made sense to me. It doesn't seem like it would be a whole lot of effort or anything else, but it seems like it would really help too. Because I mean, if this is the same issue that we're coming up again and again and again.
Did you run that by Carrie?
I tried to, and somebody I think on the commission told me not even to bother with it at that point, so.
my only concern would be how would you fund the 501c3, because if you use any county funds to fund it, then it's basically doing the same thing that we're doing now.
You'd have to start with probably some kind of a seed, right? And then,
Yeah,
and
I
then
mean, I understand where you're coming
you'd
from.
fund it going forward based on what the county paid to repurchase whatever lot. I mean, so you'd only be talking about funding it once in the beginning, and then it would hopefully pay for itself, because the county would buy back the property for some value that would include the cost to tear down. But in the whole, as a whole, it would cost the county less, because you wouldn't have to be paying for all the mitigation requirements.
I think you're gonna have a real hard time dancing around that initial startup money.
I think it's-
If the county puts money in there, then
Well, so that's what I'm saying, you have to find some other place to start. But at that point, I think it would be self-sustaining, and something to work looking into, because again, I think we're talking about over the course of the next however many years, it's probably not just one or two more homes that this is gonna come up with.
I wanna see if she can find a way to dance around that first initial.
I think it's worth bringing up with Carrie, yeah, bring it up with her and see what she thinks, I mean,
I
and
just,
kind
I
of
don't
go
know how
from
you're
there.
gonna dance around that initial, putting the county
And-
money
and-
in.
and, you
Well, I
know,
don't think you'd use county money, but I understand your point.
Where we're gonna find money then.
Bake sales,
Yeah.
They say.
make some Rice Krispies.
We'll do haunted houses and all of
There
all
you
the
go.
properties, and
That'll
we'll
work.
charge people to come use it.
The one thing I
That
would,
was the question I had last time.
yeah, and since we're on the topic, the one thing I was gonna mention is I was gonna talk to Beth about that too, and talk with Patty about it, and Ann about if we could figure out a list of what the county owns out there in these small towns that has something on it that maybe would qualify for something where we're gonna have to look at doing something with it in the future. And possibly ones that maybe are, you know, a year or two behind, or possibly, most of these towns don't have home rule, obviously, so they don't have the ability to put like an ordinance in place for like a dilapidated structure. But if they could, there's quite a few homes that are probably still getting taxes paid on them, and they're pretty much should just be torn down. And at some point, somebody's just gonna say, why am I paying taxes on this, and it's gonna come back here.
Right. And that's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and
think
I
we-
do, just long-term costs, we have to figure out a game plan so we do it correctly and legally and go from there.
Well, Starkweather, they step up and buy them, city of Starkweather.
Yeah.
That's their deal. So evidently they haven't found a way to dance around it.
Yeah, and maybe we should talk to Starkweather about it.
See how they're doing it.
Ask them how they're doing it, maybe they've got a way to do it that we're not thinking of, I mean, that's quite possible.
When you want to hand them like $400 taxes, something like that. I mean, it's a wrap. $400 and just buy it, whoever's it, wouldn't have to do it.
You know, and that when the mayor said that he was interested in purchasing it himself,
Yeah.
but he didn't have the money
You
to
just can't afford to
tear
tear
it
it down.
down. You know,
And it's too close to everything else to burn it without a active fire department in place to monitor it.
So Lloyd did tell me he'd be interested in tearing that one down for I don't wanna put words in his mouth, but he said for $0, hoping that he would get work from the city later on. So that's
That one, Ed.
him.
Yeah, I looked at that one in Hampton a few weeks ago, and it definitely needs to be going out. Yeah. It's dangerous. But, it's something like we talked about, I think it was the last meeting, we've got some time to figure it out, because we're not gonna do anything until summer anyway, so. But it's just something to talk
Good
about.
time to burn now, but.
Yes, it is.
That's all I have.
Good idea, though, just, I don't know how you get your seat down there the first time, that's the problem.
Well, something to talk about, something. Okay. Any more questions for Kevin? Discussion? Okay, thanks, Kevin. Okay, skipping over Vanguard, because we did that earlier. Approval of homestead credit abatements.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And there was one laying on your desk too, so instead of 6, there's 7.
Yep.
So that's included, I would assume. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve all 7 homestead credit abatements. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries. Out-of-state travel for the state's attorney.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Carrie traveling to an opioid conference. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Court facilities improvement grants. What are we doing with that? Do we have to approve a signature, or?
I believe we have to, and
Say it next time?
they didn't get back to me, so I'm assuming they're busy with the jury trial.
Yeah.
But I know that we only have 60 days to act. So it would be approval to pay.
Approval of our cost share.
Yep. Or, well, you know, we could put it, I think how we do it is we pay the full bill,
And then we get
and then in
reimbursed.
turn, we get reimbursed.
So that's the total cost, is that $3,800 thing?
Yep.
And then we're getting reimbursed $2,850. So it'd be $950 of our money then to get that done.
So it says no in-kind contribution will be considered. Yeah. I know she was gonna come down and,
Well, how many, what's our drop dead date on the 60 days?
Must be getting pretty darn close.
yeah, I think we'd still be okay by next meeting. No.
But basically,
can
all
only
we're
do-
doing is approving paying for it, aren't we? I mean, we're
Yeah.
gonna do it, so we
And
don't
then,
have to put a figure, we can just say approve what it's gonna cost and pay for it, so that way we're covered in case we're up against a wall.
Move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve paying for the total cost on the metal detector that will be partially reimbursed under the court facilities improvement grant. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll have roll call, please.
Olson,
Aye.
Brett,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Wakefield,
Aye.
Lightfon.
Motion carries. Visitors and delegations. Anything to tell us from that?
No, I was waiting to talk to Commissioner Wakefield after the meeting,
Oh,
so
okay.
hanging in there.
Okay. Okay, report on portfolios. Start with Lucas.
So we had our most recent Home Rule Charter Committee meeting. For the first time at an actual meeting, we had a few members of the true community there. I think that they were under the impression that what we were doing was actually enacting ordinances, I mean like enacting a home rule as we were sitting there. Just quick to inform them that there was nothing binding about what the committee was doing and that it would need to go to the board of people first. They seemed very satisfied with that. We are about 3/4 of the way through the charter. The initial draft, that is. There'll definitely be some refinements and things to discuss, but we wanted to create a document that we could all kind of base further discussion off of. So that was the intent. The elected officials provisions are more or less complete after a long discussion. We also looked at the initiative and referendum portions for the citizens of the county, should they choose to pursue regulate, any kind of an ordinance, or to call back ordinances that this commission might adopt that were not in line with the wishes of the community. And we tried to be sensible about what we were doing there. The next meeting, we're hopefully going to finish the rest of the document to include specifying what forms of taxation we want to be able to empower the county to seek out through a vote of the people. And as I think we've been clear going so far, we don't intend to include any specific tax in the charter itself. So no tax or amount of tax to be mandated by the charter. We felt that would make it much easier to pass, and that it would not muddy the waters as far as someone who might like the idea of a home rule but might not agree with the tax that it included. So that was sort of the sentiment for that. I'm hoping that we'll have that done at the next meeting, which I no longer remember when that is. I think it's the 14th.
I think so.
Yeah. 14th at 1 o'clock, 1:30? 1:30. So hopefully anyone who'd like to come will be there in attendance for that. Seems like it's going well. The library is doing very well under the new management of Jared Tolman. He's got a lot of really good ideas for updating the cataloging systems and things in the library, trying to bring us into the 21st century as far as our recording systems and things are going. In addition, he brought up the point that a lot of the library's inventory is walking out the door and not coming back. And so we're looking to add in, just like you'd find at any store or Walmart or anything else, when you walk out the door, you've got the system that blares and says that somebody's walking out with something. So the books and the movies and the different types of media that are there will be tagged with that. That expense we hope to pay for out of some of the donated funds that we have. And while we're on the topic of donated funds, the Reading Garden the plans for it have begun picking back up again now that we've got a new director, which, as you'll remember, we placed on hold because of the departure of the last director. Jared has offered some good insights into what he thinks about that, and we're actually going to go back to the drawing board more or less to see about an expanded garden. Well, the concern that he raised is that it'd be too crowded, and that was one that we had already. So we're going to look into that and see about how we might go about that. Other than that, I don't think there's anything going on with the library, and I'm not aware of anything else on any of the boards that I sit on that is pertinent, so I guess that's it.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, we'll talk about the law enforcement center. We're looking forward to the week of the 19th of March for the DOC to come up for inspection. So, other than that, things have been getting improved out there. We're fixing daily. Policies have been put in place. So, we're looking forward to people from the DOC to be up there on the week of the 19th. Social service, I guess, is quiet, unless our director wants to throw something in.
I was just gonna add on to the weekend I take the law enforcement center. Both Rob Johnson and I have been invited to a idea think tank with the North Dakota Association of Counties, with counties that are trying to figure out how to reduce with the new policies and procedures put in with less incarceration, more treatment. We're gonna present what we've been doing in our community, so we're pretty excited about that. So that's the 22nd, so I hope that isn't the same day as the Department of Corrections.
Okay. Well, I got. Okay. Work.
Everything I have is all quiet, and talking about the LRC, so we're hopefully gonna jump through some more hoops and checking off the list every day. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, Carrie is obviously gone, but she's busy with the jury trial, so nothing new from the sheriff's department. Chamber meeting was unable to make due to a scheduling conflict, but I know that they continue to move forward with their downtown stuff, and I know Paula and Susie were both kind of recognized in some literature publications. One was an advertising award for tourism for Devils Lake area, for Devils Lake tourism that Susie had just won, and Paula was just featured in a magazine about what was it, the 11 or 12 most influential women in North Dakota workplace. Good articles, so kudos to them. The water world is, we had talked about that manager's workshop that was required by set forth by the legislature. We're hosting a educational forum the 14th at 1 o'clock for water managers. Any water managers that haven't taken a course on are invited. We're doing that in the historical room on the 14th. And that is Mike Dwyer and his group is coming up to present that. It's about a 3-hour course, 1 to 4 that day, but that will meet the requirements of the North Dakota legislature's last session for water managers. All the water resource district managers throughout the region will be invited, including across the state, that haven't been able to take that course. So I'm not sure what kind of attendance we're expecting. Haven't seen the RSVP list, but hopefully that'll go good. So other than that, meeting up in Regina, Saskatchewan. I was up there for a water conference on the Assiniboine River Conference, and talking about terminal lake basins. They have a couple of them in Canada that are really going through similar situations that Devils Lake experienced back in the mid-90s, and building up roads, looking for solutions, inundated lands, but they're on a much smaller scale than what Devils Lake is. One of them they have an issue that I don't think they're going to be able to get around. It's a lake that's entirely a wildlife preserve area, or a combination of wildlife preserve and Ducks Unlimited have this lake that is overflowing and continues to overflow, and so if their wetlands is anything like ours, they'll have a tough time getting any support draining that system. But and the other one was northeast of Regina, and that one, Quill Lakes, is the one up there, and they're having some problems. It's a little bigger situation than the one Whitewater down in Manitoba, but it's affecting a lot of agricultural land, and extremely flat up in that area. You don't think of it as, but very flat, a lot of agricultural acres being affected, and what we've done and what's worked and what hasn't worked for our situations, and so a lot of similarities, even though we're on a larger scale than them, but it was a good conference, so very interesting.
Okay. On my front, I wasn't able to get to the Ramsey County Housing Authority meeting last month because I had a sick child, so I had to stay home with her. For Devils Lake, I missed not last month's meeting, but I sat down and talked with Bernard following it, and I think I mentioned it to all of you at the last meeting. We're going to meet again. I don't know the exact date, but I believe it's next week sometime. And I think it's going to be a full board meeting at that point. We're going to determine how we're going to set up the interview structure and everything moving forward. So that's the process there, at least as far as I know at this point. I can't remember how many people were still interested. I think we had 7 people or something like that. So we'll probably, I don't know how we're going to break that down, if we're going to figure a top 3 or whatever, but that's going to be determined at that point. Social services, obviously, talked about that a little bit, not too much to mention there. The only last thing I have is I've been attending the free through recovery meetings. The state has that $7 million pot of money, and they're trying to do, essentially try to decrease recidivism. So when they come out of the jail or they come out of the reentry center, It's a program to help them get addiction treatment services, to help them have peer support specialists, to basically walk them back into life outside of the prison system and to try to, give them the help they need so they don't have to go back into the prison system or the jail system. And we've got a really good group of people here in town that are working on it. Basically between Judge Christopherson has been kind of the facilitator, so to speak, running the meetings, but a lot of work's been done by Rob Johnson, as well as Nels Nelson's been doing a lot of work with it. I can't remember his last name, but John from here in town has been doing a lot of work too, and it's been really, really positive. We had the guys from F5 project come up from Fargo last week. It's really interesting. They have a coordinated structure for where they'll lease a house, and then it's for basically their main focus is on housing for people coming out, and then giving job training and things like that on top of it, so we can, as well as, supporting them through addiction treatment, things like that too. But that's not their focal point, but they do that as well. They've been around for, I think, like a year and a half in Fargo, and they have 6 or 7 houses right now, and they're actually just Giving Hearts Day every day. They had $105,000 worth of donations on Giving Hearts Day. So people in Fargo were really recognizing it's something that's working, and they're buying into it. So it was interesting hearing from Adam Martin, who's the started the project, and then hearing his perspective on things we could do here in Devil's Lake, or maybe places they could help out. They showed them the reentry center after that, as well as some homes in the community that maybe would be possible to lease, so maybe they could step in and start doing some stuff here where they do peer support and stuff. But we have a good group of local people. I think we're up to like 7 peer support specialists here in town to help out with the project, or help out with the Free Through Recovery, as well as we have 2 people that have gone to the trainer program, so they're going to be able to train people locally in Devil's Lake too to do peer support. So we've got a really, really, really good start. They had, I think, 3 people are in the program now. We have room for 10, and we're also working on other community options as the facilitating agent right now. They're looking for 1 more facilitating agent because we think there's going to be plenty of people for way more than 10 spots. Trying something more than anything to see if we can find something that sticks so we can help people not have to go back into the system again, and better their life and save us a little bit of money, hopefully, in the long run. Our jail bill was, between that and reentry, was $97,000 again this month. So if we can help people be productive members of society and not have to go back into the system, boy, that would be a big help, and it would be fantastic for them too.
Fargo's all private donations then?
That was all private donations, matching Giving Hearts Day, yeah. And I don't know how they fully fund, but they've built from basically, this guy that started the F5 project he's a 5-time felon, and I don't know if it was all drug offenses or what, but he kind of found his way out of it. And he started working once he got out of prison, doing jobs that are available, and he worked his way up the ladder, and then he started working for, I can't remember what it was called, but it's basically an entrepreneur place. And so he's big on entrepreneurial spirit and really going out and talking with people, because he said, most of these guys, I shouldn't say guys, but most of the individuals that find their way into jail are really good at talking to people. So why don't we take advantage of that capability and train them to do things where they're good at going out and talking to people? Whether it's starting a business, whether it's, being, phone operation, stuff like that. So they actually they're doing job training. They have internships that they do within the project. They've got a side venture now where they're doing the training as well as doing like phone call centers, talking to people. They're doing all kinds of really interesting stuff. And it's just, it's one way to look at how to do this. And I think the consensus at the committee meetings has been, this is one route. That one route isn't gonna work for every person that comes out of the jail. But maybe if we can establish this and one other one, because some people it's going to be a faith-based approach that's really going to work for them. Some people it's not. Some people it's going to be, a little bit of tough love. So we need different approaches that are going to work, so we can attempt to get as many people helped as we can, so they don't get back in.
But you're not sure how they're funded?
It's a nonprofit.
It is a nonprofit.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit. There's no government funding, as far as I know. It's a 501c3 NPO, I think. I don't know where, he's got a lot of people that, you know, local entrepreneurs and parts of the business community that I think have partnered into the project and really bought into it. Go look them up on Facebook and if you have a chance. It's really interesting. And he was very, very personable, and he had actually a guy along with him who was one of the first guys to go through the project. And he was, what do you say, he was actually just coming out of drug court. He was 9 months clean and sober at that point, just coming out of drug court, and he was, you know, he found his way. I mean, and it's a daily struggle, like you said. But the other interesting thing they do is they go into prisons to do outreach. So they'll actually go in, and before, you know, a lot of the time you think of it, well, they're coming out of prison, okay, now let's talk to them. No, they go in and make those connections with the people in the prison before they even come out. So these guys or females can say, hey, this is something that could work for me. And they make those connections, so when they come out, they've already got a structure in place to roll them in and say, hey, let's get this rolling for you. So instead of going, well, they get out and they go, where am I gonna go now? They've got a place to go already, they've got everything structured. You know, and they obviously have failures too, just like everybody else does, but they're trying something, and it's working. They said it's a 3 or 4 phase system, I can't remember, and they said if you make it through all the phases and you get out of the project essentially, up to this point, they've got like a 94% rate of not reoffending at this point. And granted, it's only a year in, you know, so but it's working so far. Even if you capture half of those people and they don't go back into the system, you're doing better than probably you would be anyway. I don't know what the reoffense rate is, but it's pretty doggone high.
Program's about a year old.
Yeah, I think they're about a year and a half, something like that. And the guy that runs it, I think he said he's been 6 years now, about 6 years out.
So they're not using addiction counselors?
They are, but they don't provide the actual counseling. Essentially, they're saying the main thing you need is housing. And then once you have that housing, we can provide you services. And they work with Cass County Social Services, they work with Lutheran Social Services, they work with all the different agencies to provide the services necessary, but they also then do job training and stuff like that. So it's interesting. It's an interesting model, you know, and they get some blowback too because people don't want felons living in their, you know, in their neighborhoods. So they've had to deal with that a little bit too. But it seems to be working. So it was just interesting hearing from them and seeing what they're doing. And you know, there's a lot of different models that work. It's just a matter of how do you establish those models in a community the size of ours and keep that momentum going forward, keeping an operating budget and things like that. So I think that's where we almost have to reach out to some of these different models and from other places and not reinvent the wheel and just see if they can help us come into the community and maybe we can find a way to structure it so it works. So we're not starting from square one.
We're definitely in need here, that's for sure.
I don't think we're gonna run out of customers anytime soon, so. But if we can help them, that's the main goal. So, other than that, I don't think I have anything else. Anybody else have anything?
Motion to adjourn.
You have a motion to adjourn?